how do I make sense of this? It looks really, really, really good. Where do I even start? Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Anne-Sophie. I'm a knitter from Belgium, and today I'd like to chat to you guys a little bit about how I knit according to my seasonal color palette for over a year. I have my knit garments behind me to show you later on, and I'm wearing minimal makeup, no jewelry, and just a classic cream colored top to really show you my actual knits, but that will be a bit more towards the end of the video. Because the way I'm going to structure this... Oh, hi Lila! Hi, welcome! Are you joining us today? Are you? That's nice. We're joined by Lila today, who is very unhappy with our little setup, but she's been investigating, and she probably will continue to investigate and just, walk around in the living room as I film my little video. So this video will not be one of those videos where I'll be explaining to you how to figure out your color season. It will rather be one where I explain how I found my color season and share my resources and, by lack of a less corny word, my journey. I know it's been very trendy, and that's essentially why I wanted to make this video, because otherwise I wouldn't have thought people found this interesting. But this is something I've been interested in for, I think, at least like a year or 4 or 5 now, but I was never really fully able to figure out my color season until like 2 years ago, when I really became quite sure of where exactly I fit in. So I'd love to share with you how I got there without any professional help, because I did not get professionally tested. I just have raging ADHD and got hyper-focused on this whole thing and scoured the internet for information and quizzes and actually learned a lot about color theory. It's been so helpful in my knitting. It has helped me be really happy and excited about almost all of my color choices since I've been doing this. So I just thought it would be interesting to take you through my process by first talking about how I figured out my color season, how I found yarns and colors that worked for me, and then actually show the yarns and the colors and how they work for me. So let's get into it. Just for those of you who really aren't familiar with the matter, or who are like a tiny bit familiar but not too much, I'll give some generic info on what these seasonal color types are and how they work, essentially. This is just info I gathered to figure it out for myself and what helped me figure it out. I'll be referring to content creators that helped me in the video and in the description box below. I would highly recommend you check them out for like actual how can you find your color season content. I'll just be talking about me and my experience and referring to specifically Gabrielle Arruda's content when talking about the general tenets of color season theory. I just want to stress, I'm not a professional. My only knowledge on this topic is on my season, so I have like limited knowledge on other color seasons. I can't give you any advice. This is just me going through my process, and I thought it might be nice for other people to look at this and maybe figure out whether this is something that's interesting or feasible for them to try out as well, because I know a lot of knitters have been talking about their seasonal color palettes in their YouTube podcasts and trying to stick to them. They've gotten professionally tested or figured it out themselves, and I am one of those. So I just thought, if other people are interested in doing this, I'll just tell them how I went about it without getting a professional opinion. I'm not an expert whatsoever. I've just figured out what works for me and enjoyed the process. Now, if you're interested in finding some more knitting specific content on the seasonal color palettes, my friend Maddie over at True Summer Knits actually focuses on this on her channel. So she has regular podcasts and great pattern roundups, but so she also has this video where she shares how you can figure out your seasonal color palette, and for each color palette, she shares some yarn recommendations as well, which is pretty cool and neat. I definitely recommend you check that out because she's going to be talking about all of the seasonal color palettes there. And she recently started this thing where she's making shorts and reels with yarn recommendations for each seasonal, well, each color season essentially. And she shared one, she started with knitting for olive, and so she's already shared like knitting for olive yarns you could, or colorways you can try to use as a soft summer, and she'll be sharing more of those in the future, and I'm very excited to see them. So it would be cool if you figure out what your season is to go head over to Maddie's channels on like Instagram and on YouTube to see what she recommends for you, because then you don't have to do all of the thinking work that I did for myself for yourself. So it might be easier for you to check out Maddie or someone else to figure it out for you. So as you probably know, there's 4 color seasons based on the seasons generally. So you have like autumn season, spring, winter, and summer. But unfortunately or fortunately, you figure that out for yourself. It's not that simple. There's actually quite some categories that people can fit into. You have the light spring, the warm spring, clear spring, light summer, soft summer, cool summer, soft autumn, warm autumn, dark autumn, clear winter, cool winter, and deep winter. That's a lot. When I saw that for the first time, I was like, okay, how do I make sense of this? Where do I even start to try and figure this out? I was thoroughly overwhelmed, and that's when I found Gabrielle Arruda's content and really got into it and figured out which of these 12 different seasons I was. Now what's interesting is to know that these 12 seasons actually fit into like a circle. So you start at the right top with spring, then summer, then you have autumn, and then you have winter. And in this circle, there's 3 subtypes for each season, and there's always like one in the middle that's like the true or the cool or the warm version of each season, and that's the one that is like the blueprint. It's interesting to start there on the little wheel of seasonal color palettes to see that the ones that are opposite one another are autumn and spring and winter and summer. So the traditionally cool and warm seasons are, for cool there's winter and summer, and then for warm there's autumn and spring. You know, before I get into all of this in a tiny bit more detail, there's the so what question. Like, so what? You want to fit into one of these 12 categories. What does it matter? Essentially, it all boils down to one buzzword, and that's harmony. So what figuring out your color season helps you do is it helps you figure out which colors harmonize with your features, and just as importantly, which ones don't. So there's this one part of the discussion where people want to figure out what their color season is because they want to figure out which colors make them look good, which colors make imperfections appear a lot less. I'm less focused on this personally. I find it more interesting to look at which colors make certain features pop. I prefer the more positive discourse, so to speak. And for example, like which colors would make the tint of your lips pop, or your eye color, or your hair color, or your skin tone make it appear more glowy and radiant, and which would thus harmonize with your tones, which would make everything look nice and suited to each other and fit in and blend perfectly. And just as interestingly, which colors wouldn't harmonize. For example, which colors would, in Dutch there's this saying, weglopen met u, which color would run away with you, because the first thing you would notice when someone is wearing a color that is totally not in their season is that it kind of, you notice the color first. For example, if I were to wear a very, very bright blue, that color would be running away with me, right? You would notice the bright blue before you notice me in my specific case. And then which colors wash you out, which is also interesting because like in theater or something, or in a painting, if you want a person or a character to appear washed out, you would know to dress them in a color that doesn't harmonize with their features. So it all boils down to not necessarily like looking perfect and looking great. For me, it's just really interesting to figure out color theory and how colors work and which effects they have when being combined. And so I thought it was interesting to figure out, yeah, what my characteristics are and which effect which types of colors would have on me. So how did I go about this? Which information did I use? Which information did I find? How did I make sense of things? Because I mean, there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of different content creators, and essentially because of that, there's also a lot of conflicting information. I just found one content creator that, for me, works very well because she writes blog posts, she has YouTube videos. Gabrielle Arruda is her name. I will link to her in the description box below. But so she explains things very clearly and in quite basic terms, and in some posts or videos goes into more depth for those that like it. She also has these very clear infographics and visuals, which just, I'm a very visual person, just the fact that I'm interested in the whole seasonal color palette, color theory thing is kind of already a testament to that. So I used her blog posts and information to, yeah, basically get started and learn a lot about these things and figure it out for myself, and I'll be guiding you through that right now. I'll just be going through my process and focus on my color season, but the underlying idea and the characteristics in colors that you look at are kind of the same for each color season. I did this specifically for my color season, but I'm sure you could take the same steps to get to a different point or a different color season. So basically, to figure out what season you fit into, you need to figure out three things. There are three characteristics or variables that are important to take into account, and if you figure out these three things for you, you can figure out your seasonal color palette. What you need to figure out is your hue, your value, and your chroma. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, your hue refers to your undertones. So that's what we're talking about when people are saying I'm cool toned, I'm warm toned, or I'm neutral. And this is essentially a bit of a scale. Winter and summer are the cool seasons, and autumn and spring are the warm season. If you are clearly cool or clearly warm, you'll probably fit into the true version of each season. So then the non-true versions of each season can usually be a bit more neutral, but then warm or cool leaning, which is the case for me. I figured out I'm a neutral toned person because I got my makeup professionally done and they pointed that out to me, which was one step in my process. I didn't only figure it out through my veins, because they always tell you you need to look at your veins. And my veins are like quite blue and purple. I don't know if you can see this. The lighting is very off today. It's very Belgian weather. The sun pops out and then pops back behind a cloud the whole time. But so my veins are apparently cool because they're blue and purple and not yellow and green, but there is some green in there and some yellow in there, which makes my skin more neutral with a cool leaning undertone. So if you look at your veins and you're clearly like very cool, you have like pink, purple, blue veins, or you have like very clearly yellow or green veins, I think you can very clearly figure out for yourself whether you're cool or warm. But for me, it actually took getting my makeup professionally done and someone telling me, no, you're neutral, to figure out that I'm cool, but also a bit more neutral. So because of that, I'm either a summer or a winter. Then if you go into value, you need to figure out whether your value is light, medium, or dark. I found it very hard to understand what the whole value thing meant, but I found a resource on Simplified Wardrobe, I think it was a blog post, where they told you to put a black and white filter on yourself and see how much your features contrast with one another. So for example, if you're like naturally because you're talking about your natural hair color, right? I'm not a natural blonde, but if I'd be a natural blonde and have light blue eyes and fair skin, or I would have very dark skin, very dark hair, very dark eyes, the black and white filter would not make me appear very contrasty. Now this can work on all skin tones, so you having a fair skin tone does not mean you appear light, and you having a dark skin tone does not mean you appear dark. It really has to do with the appearance of your skin tone and with the way it basically, I think, reflects light and how it fits in with the rest of your features. And so that's what value pertains to, in my lay understanding at least. My contrast is like medium leaning towards light, and dark contrast would mean you're either a winter or an autumn, and more light contrast would mean you're either a spring or a summer. And since I was either a winter or a summer before, by now I think it's safe to say I will probably be a summer. But then we still have to look at chroma, the third characteristic. Chroma has to do with saturation of a color. Apparently not every color is a color. If you add a lot of gray to a color, you get a tone. I'd love to figure out more about that. It sounds very interesting. But so chroma refers to how much gray has been added to a color. So how gray and desaturated colors or colorings appear essentially. When it comes to features, it has to do with how gray your eyes are in tone, or how saturated your eyes are in color, or how saturated and poppy your hair might be. Like if you have a clear caramelly blonde hair, or a very clearly like auburn flashy hair, it will be higher in chroma than if you have very ashy, mousy blonde hair, for example. Now, I don't have bright or popping features, so that would make me either an autumn or a summer. If you do have bright or popping features, you would fall into the spring or winter category. So just by looking at these three characteristics, I've already been able to figure out that I am a summer. That was actually the hardest part of figuring it out, because there's quite some conflicting resources and everything online, but I was happy to, find that out, because from then I could get into which of the three different subtypes of the summer I, fall into. So, how did I figure out which of the three summer types I am? So you have light summer, which neighbors the spring season, then you have the true or cool summer, and then you have soft summer, which neighbors the autumn season. I'm going to post some small Gabrielle arruda infographics on here, which show the three color palettes next to each other. As you can see, there's not too much of a stark difference between these three, right? We're really talking about the same colors, with essentially sort of the same situations in terms of where they fall on the scale in terms of hue, value, and chroma, but some differences in these scales still. So compared to the other seasons, they have a similar tendency in terms of hue, value, and chroma, but compared to each other, for each season, one of the three variables stands out a bit more, or leans a bit more to one side of the scale. So overall, all of these color palettes already appear more cool, more light, and more muted, but each of these appears a bit more cool than light or muted, a bit more light than cool or muted, or a bit more muted than cool or light. And that's obviously also reflected in the names. So I could have just figured out whether I appeared more light, more cool, or more muted. But luckily, people like Gabrielle Arruda have these beautiful infographics that can really help you visualize the matter and see where you fall into. So let me just quickly take you through each of those infographics for these 3 seasons and show you how I ended up with mine. As you can see, this is the light summer color palette, but this infographic includes possible, like a non-exhaustive little list of possible hair colors, eye colors, and skin tones, the 3, like a little dot on the 3 scales, and a little preview of the colors that would harmonize with these features. So for the light summer, you would fit into this category if you have a light ashy blonde or a light ashy brown natural hair color, like light grayish blue, green, or ashy brown eyes that appear very light in color because it's a light summer, and a light skin tone. So not necessarily fair, but if you would look at, for example, darker skin tones, it would be one of the lighter ones rather than one of the deeper ones. And yeah, just, I don't know. I find it hard to put this into words, but if you look at these skin tones next to each other, you can see how they appear quite light. Then theoretically, for the light summer, the value carries more weight than hue or chroma. So as you can see, the value clearly leans light, and the hue and chroma are a bit less outspoken. So the hue is cool neutral, and the chroma is medium but soft leaning. Now for me, I have naturally ashy, dark blonde or brown. According to hairdressers, it's dark blonde. According to me, it's dark brown hair. And, well, yeah, look at my roots. This is my hair color. Ta-da! But so yeah, that's not what you would categorize as light. I do have very fair skin, but my eyes are not light either. They're grayish, very grayish green. So just going off that, I wouldn't say I fit into the light summer category. So we move on to the true summer color season. Now the true summer is the really markedly cool subseason of the summers, and as I've said before, I have more of a neutral skin tone, so I don't think I'll be fitting into this one, but let's see. If you have not too light, ashy, dark blonde, or dark brown hair, or a very cool toned brown hair color, you probably fit into the true summer category. Same goes for if you have very clearly cool toned eyes, a cool toned brown, a cool green, a cool blue, generally a bit more saturated, a bit more poppy, and very clearly cool toned skin, you're a true summer. Theoretically, if you look at the little scales, the hue clearly leans very, very cool, and the other ones sit a bit more in the middle but still lean towards the side that fit the summer color seasons more. So me, I'm neutral. My hair is just ashy and gray, not markedly cool, and my eyes are also not very bright green or cool. They're just gray, which kind of only leaves one color season, the soft summer, where the main characteristic, or the most important characteristic, is chroma and how grayed out colors appear. So if I amateur analyzed everything correctly, I would be a soft summer, which I assume I am and have for over 2 years now. But let's talk that through for a second. So I have ashy brown hair, which according to the infographic fits in there. I have very gray-green eyes, a bit darker gray-green eyes, which according to the infographic fits in there. And I have neutral, cool-leaning fair skin, which also fits in there. And if you look at the scales, I have a medium to light contrast, I am neutral, cool, leaning, and I appear very muted and soft. So there we go. My color season is the soft summer. So what does that mean? That means that colors that suit me are cool colors like blues and purples, but also greens and pinks, and even cool toned yellows, and that the colors that look best on me are cool but leaning neutral, so they can be a bit more warm than, for example, what would look good on a true summer, and that they're very desaturated, right? Because they have to be soft to harmonize with my features. Now, of course, all of this was oversimplified. I made generalizations. This whole system generalizes and puts people into categories. Like, naturally, if you want to put people into categories, you're going to have to generalize, and not every single person on the planet is going to fit into these categories. All of these kinds of systems are always flawed. It's not an exact science. I know for a fact my mother got professionally tested and did not fit into any categories. She doesn't have a color season. She only has like a little booklet that she walks around with because they tested all of these drapes on her, and now she knows what makes her features pop, and she just walks around with that in the store. Personally, I don't even use a little booklet. I just liked learning about color theory, and I tried to assess the value, hue, and chroma of colors to see whether they're going to suit me, and that has been a very fun experiment. Now, the fun part, let me take you through my color choices, which will include mistakes, especially in terms of like neutrals. I had a hard time figuring out neutrals, and I feel like only after like a year and a half of experimenting, I've kind of figured out what works, and I'm excited to try out more neutral yarns and figure that out more in the future. Maybe there will be a part 2 where I talk about soft summer neutrals and the yarns that I tried and which ones worked or not. If you're interested in that, leave a comment below. But yeah, let's get through it, because it's been a bit of a process. I actually started, as I implied already, with the more colorful yarns, and especially with like the clearly more cool toned still colors, so like blues, purples, and then dappled in some green, and recently also pink. I'm not really wearing any jewelry. I just put on a basic cream top and a limited amount of makeup to really show you how these colors look on me. I'll try and put my hair a bit to the back to see whether you can, help me assess, because I'm going to be editing this and then assessing the colors as well. But yeah, let's assess my choices and see how I did. So I started with brighter colors, but I think, as you can see, I put everything like color coded behind me. We'll just go through them as I hung them. So let's start with green and then go into the neutrals at the end, because I think it would be interesting to chat a bit more about my journey in terms of finding neutrals that suit me near the end, because I think the story is going to get a little tail, as we say in Dutch, because I'm really not fully there yet with the neutrals. Because online yarn shopping can be so tricky and colors can look very different in real life than online, I'll insert pictures of what the colorways look like online, or looked like when I bought them, because I think that's interesting and can be very tricky, and I did buy them, well, most of my yarns online, so that might be nice information for you to have. That said, let's get into it. One of the first colors I tried out was the Knitting for Olive Dusty Artichoke colorway, out of which I knit my sweater number 15 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I used the merino and the soft silk mohair held together. This color looks amazing on me. It is, I think, the perfect soft summer green, and well, it was very safe to start with Knitting for Olive. One, because I love their yarns. I'm very lucky in that Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair is one of the only mohairs that doesn't form an issue for my sensitive skin, and same goes for the merino. I love knitting these things up, and I'm just lucky that they happen to have all of these colors that fit in my season because they're cool toned and they are labeled dusty, which makes them very muted, desaturated, and soft. I'm also just incredibly lucky that I fall into the soft summer category because cool toned, desaturated colors are actually also my favorite colors, so that also might be part of why I was so interested in doing this, because these colors, just looking at this rack makes me so happy because they're actually all like my favorite colors, and yeah, that's fun. I love just how that worked out for me. I'm very lucky. But yeah, so this is the Knitting for Olive Dusty Artichoke. If you're a soft summer, or like, I think probably also if you're like my neighboring color season, like a soft autumn, I think the desaturated soft colors in Knitting for Olive's colorway repertoire are really the way to go, because this worked so well for me, and I do think this works for a lot of people. That was easy for me because it just all works, and I'm happy about that. So that's the Dusty Artichoke. Another green I tried out more recently, because I only recently found out that I could go a bit warmer with my color choices, but this is a top sole by Mochi Knits that I knit up in Camero's Løvtand organic linen in the color Fennicle. And this is clearly more warm green than the Dusty Artichoke. But yeah, let's see how that looks on me. Let's actually compare for a second there. I think this looks really nice on me, and it harmonizes with my features beautifully, but I do think the Dusty Artichoke does so a tiny bit better, just because it is a bit more cool toned and more markedly dusty. But yeah, overall, I do think this suits me. So just goes to show how like a more neutral skin tone can make this whole thing a lot easier. I reckon my friend Maddie, who is a true summer, would have more trouble finding a sage green or eucalyptus green that works for her, because for her it would have to be more markedly cool. Yeah, but so pro tip for the true summers out there, Dusty Artichoke by Knitting for Olive could be sufficiently cool of a green for people who have a very cool undertone. Now, one of the first blues I tried is the Soft Blue, also by Knitting for Olive, because like when I started out this whole thing, I bought a lot of Knitting for Olive yarn because one, it's my favorite, and two, they have all of these dusty colorways. But so I got the Soft Blue, and I've noticed how on me the Soft Blue yarn looks more blue than on other people, because I knit in the soft silk mohair. I knit the Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit, which, I mean, this one has almost purplish undertones, is a very, like, my supervisor in a certain light thought this was gray instead of blue, so it does really matter what kind of light you're shining on it. But in this natural light, it looks blue with a very gray undertone and more to, like, leaning purplish. Whereas if you take the Soft Blue cotton merino yarn, you get a bit warmer of a color, right? As you can see, this one's pilling a little bit because I accidentally put it in the wash. Please ignore that. But so let me put it over here to show you what it looks like. This one still looks really good on me. Still appears quite blue. On my friend Maddie, it appears like more of a neutral. I don't think that's the case for me. I think for me it is appearing quite blue because it harmonizes with my features a lot, and then this color appears more vibrant, I guess. But I think this appears more warm still than this one. Yeah, I don't know if you can tell because my camera doesn't always pick up colors the best, But so this is a bit more of a greenish soft blue, and this is a bit more of a purpley soft blue. But still, both of them look, in my opinion, quite amazing with my features. So it's just interesting for you to know. I wonder what the merino looks like. I feel like I'm gonna have to test that too to see what it looks like. So this is a bit of the color difference for the yarn. So it just goes to show that knitting for olive yarns do appear quite different sometimes. They can be the same colorway, but a different yarn base, and then you get a bit of a difference already. So might be cool to know. Now, the very first knitting for olive colorway that I ever tried out actually is the ice blue. I combined the mohair and the merino to make this Robinson wrap cardigan by Handmade by Florence. Unfortunately, this got ruined. I have a huge varnish stain along the back. I'm thinking of frogging and reknitting this winter because I do have enough yarn, I think, to replace this portion of the knit because it is one of my favorite knits ever. I have like a little under a ball of both the mohair and the merino left over. So I think I'm going to fix this knit soon because this color does look very good on me as well. Yeah, it's a very, don't look at the at the yellowy stain, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a very cool and icy color and still sufficiently desaturated to look good on my soft coloring, which I really enjoy. It's a very, well, very cool blue because it's ice blue, of course, but it's also very light, so I think this would work really well on a light summer too. But yeah, that's the ice blue. I don't want to look at this knit or talk about this knit too much because it hurts my soul that it's ruined, but I really think I'm going to fix this one this winter and just knit it up, well, frog it and knit it up again to be able to wear it again because I love this. And I love it even more than I thought than I thought I'd love the soft blue, just because it's a bit more of a statement. It pops a tiny bit more. I feel like with the soft blue, my features pop, but this one is a tiny bit brighter, and I feel like the yarn color gets to pop a bit more than my features do, which is why I think this one's been doing so well on my Instagram, because, I don't know, I feel like it suits my skin tone, but it pops more. Yeah, I'm rambling and just hypothesizing here, but I think because this is a tiny bit brighter that the knit garment gets to pop more than I do when I wear this, and I don't mind that. I feel like this beauty can pop all she wants because she deserves it, because she's one of the prettiest things I've ever knit. Yeah, so I didn't depill or steam any of these garments because this video was enough work already, and yeah, just enjoy the look of the little frumpled up tiny bit pilly yarns. So recently I've kind of challenged myself to steer away from the knitting for olive a little bit and try out other yarns, other slightly more affordable yarns as well. And I tried out SANDNES GARN colors. One of those is a blue one. I knit a blouse number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear in the color blue hortensia of the SANDNES GARN tynn, which is like a linen cotton viscose blend that I held double. As you can see, this is a bit more of a saturated blue than what I had been dabbling in before, and I was a bit scared when I saw this arrive at first, but as you can see, it looks really good. It's this nice periwinkle purple toned blue, and it's bright and slightly saturated compared to the knitting for olive colors, but like sufficiently desaturated for me. I have learned. So it's nice to know that I can get away with brighter colors than I thought I could, and that has opened up a lot more possibilities for me as well, which is really nice because I love, love, love this. And I can't wait to try out more SANDNES GARN blues now because they have the petite knit above the clouds colorway, which I think is even a tiny bit more desaturated than this one. But yeah, oh, this smells so good. I just washed it. Amazing. Yeah, but so that's the situation, or that's the tea on the SANDNES GARN blue hortensia. I thought it was gonna be too bright. It's not. I guess compared to other blues, you could still consider this muted or soft. Just on the scale for chroma, it's not all the way to the left, as you could say, for example, the Knitting for Olive soft blue is. But it's sufficiently to the left to look good on me, I reckon. So, yay, another win. Now, going into the purples, I started dabbling in purple by looking at like very desaturated lavenders. So I was using FILCOLANA Peruvian and pernilla in the lavender gray colorway, which is a gray but a purplish gray. And I thought I'd use FILCOLANA pernilla in that colorway to knit an elevation loop sweater by Other Loops. This is her. It's not as gray as you could expect it to be. That's because I had some trouble finding a yarn to match with it. I ended up buying the ISAGER silk mohair in the color 12, which looked a lot more grayed out and dusty on pictures than it did in real life. It's quite vibrant, so maybe you can see it's like a tiny bit marled now. The fabric, yeah, it does have a slight marl, and the mohair pops out against the gray purple a little bit, so I was a bit scared of how this was going to look on me, but fortunately I find it's sufficiently desaturated to harmonize with my features, which I'm very happy about. I think combining the grayish purple with the tiny bit more saturated purple was a good move, because now this is like a bit more of a brighter knit for me, but it's still sufficiently grayed out to suit me very well. So this is one of my more colorful knits rather than having it be a grayish purple, almost more neutrally garment. Yeah, I don't know, it's so big and it's so fluffy and comfy that I like that this garment turned out to be a bit more of a statement than I initially wanted it to be. Although I do still think a more neutral color would look amazing for this garment. But yeah, I'm not too mad about it. But now I've learned that if I compare a slightly more saturated mohair with a grayed out DK weight, you get this kind of vibe, and that's good to know and fun to learn. But yeah, the ISAGER mohair, it's so soft. It's insanely soft, but for some reason it's itchy to me. It's quite warm outside, and I'm just feeling this against my skin and walking around with it, and it's itching me all over, and I'm so mad because for other people this yarn is not itchy at all and just the softest ever. So yeah, I'm salty about that. Thought I'd share that with you for a second. Now, I tried out another lavenderish gray this summer, and as you can see, wait, I'll hold it against my skin. This is much more of a toned down neutral color on me than the other purple was. Yeah, this is the 9 p.m. tank by Tiffnet, knit up in Malabrigo sock in the color Pearl. I do think this would have looked better on me if I didn't try out a variegated yarn. I thought this would be low contrast enough to look nice on me, but I think I do look better in things that aren't variegated. You know what? No, I'm lying. I don't think that's actually, I'm not sure that's the case. I just think it's less my thing. I think things are prettier when they're just one color and not striped or variegated. But so yeah, the pearl colorway looks really nice. I've noticed that it looks a lot more gray actually on some people, whereas on me I find it looks more purple which just might have to do with my coloring and is also quite interesting to know. But yeah, it's a fun yarn. I'm glad I tried it, but it's not as much my favorite as, for example, knitting this up in a dusty purple, just overall non-variegated color would be. Ta-da! One of the first pinks I tried was also a Knitting for Olive. This is Knitting for Olive Dusty Rose, held with some drop skid silk that I had left over in the color Powder. I'm gonna hold it closer so maybe you can see the slight marl in this fabric. The powder kind of slightly warmed up and also grayed out the rose even more. If you really look at the little pieces of pink that pop up, they're a tiny bit more saturated and more cool. But clearly it doesn't matter too much that I toned down the rosy, pinky, cool toned color of the yarn because it still looks really good. But because I used the powdery mohair that I had in my stash and not the Knitting for Olive Dusty Rose soft silk mohair, I think this vest is more leaning towards a neutral than towards a fun pop of pink color, which I like because I have trousers that are brighter and more poppy pink, and if I compare those with this vest, the outfit is not too bright overall. So that was a good choice. Again, it's actually a bit the opposite of what I did with the elevation, or ended up, not consciously, of what I learned with the elevation loop sweater, to use a bit brighter of a mohair with a softer merino. Here I used a bit brighter, well, totally not bright, but a merino that is still brighter than the mohair, and got a bit more of an even, like a powdery, dusty fabric. Yeah, I thought that was just really cool and fun to learn, because this is more of a powdery, neutral grayish garment now than, for example, my elevation loop sweater. But so yeah, that's the kind of blushy, cool toned pink that I dappled in first. I didn't really dare to go into bright pinks early on in my experimental little journey because I thought they would be too warm. But recently I did pick up a pink of which I feared it was going to be too warm, but it wasn't. So this spring I wanted to knit the Frankie Genser by SANDNES GARN, and I didn't know what color to use, so as I always tend to do when I have choice paralysis, I created a little poll in my Instagram stories and people decided for me, which thank you very much, and people picked this pink. I was afraid from the pictures that it would be too warm of a pink. It's the SANDNES GARN Kos in the color, or Kus, I'm not sure, in the color 4333. And it is this dusty old rose. It's much brighter than some of the other colors that I've used, just like the blue hortensia color that I used in the tynn, but it looks amazing. I don't think I've ever seen a better pink on myself, and I was so happy to learn this because this color, it doesn't appear warm in real life. Like, just next to this pink, it's clearly a cool toned pink, right? This pillow appears like dusty pink already, but this is like a more warm toned orangey pink than this one. This is clearly, it has blue undertones, it's a cool toned pink, but on the pictures it looks more like this, which is why I was worried, but I thought it would be fine. I wanted to try it out, but I was glad that it was more cool toned because it looks amazing and it is slightly bright and it just pops sufficiently for me. And I'm so happy I experimented with that a little bit because I love this sweater to death, and I think I'm going to wear it so much that it's gonna be the most popular sweater in my wardrobe, I'm quite sure. Ta-da! in 4333. Now, those are all of the colors that I tried. Now, I also tried Dusty Aqua by Knitting for Olive, which appeared too warm on screen, but when I saw it in my local yarn store, it looked cool enough to give a try, and it looks really good on me. I'll see if I can insert a picture. It's currently blocking because it's a test knit for Maddie from True Summer Knits, and I redid the I-cord edges to make them a bit tighter. So that's currently blocking and wet, so I can't put it on a hanger and show it to you guys. It's in water. But yeah, that looks a lot better than I thought it was too. So I've been dabbling in brighter pinks, brighter blues recently, aqua turquoisey colors. I'm excited to experiment more with those in the future. But as I hinted at already, after these little experiments, I'd like to figure out my neutrals a bit more. So neutrals I've tried out so far are Knitting for Olive Dusty Mousse, which so far really is or has been the winner. I have never found a neutral color that suits me this well before. It's a very desaturated, dusty, cool-toned, grayed out brown, and it suits me perfectly. So this is, in my opinion, the perfect soft summer neutral, because it's neutral in the sense that it's a brown and not like a gray and anthracite or anything, but there's so much gray added to it that it's cool-toned enough to work. So it's like neutral cool-toned, it's light, it's not too dark, and it's sufficiently dusty, and it just works as the perfect neutral for me. I knit a Cami number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear in Knitting for Olive Merino in this colorway. It's very cropped because I lost yarn chicken, so if I knit it again, I'm going to be doing waist decreases to have more, to have a longer body with 2 wells of yarn. But so this is beautiful. I immediately started an Agnieta cardigan by Petite Knit with the Dusty Mousse colorway that's on my needles currently. It's a long-term whip because it's brioche stitch cardigan on 3mm needles, so that's going to take me a while to finish up. But once I've finished that whip, I think it's going to look so good with this camisole underneath, and I'm going to be wearing it all the time because it's just, this color is, in my opinion, just the perfect neutral for me. Which, yeah, just analyzing this really helped me figure out neutrals a bit more, because I thought I'd try it out. The color looked nice. I bought it kind of on a whim, and on a website where the color looked a lot less brown than it did on the Knitting for Olive website. It looked more gray. I thought I was actually buying an anthracite gray, but I was buying a grayed out brown, and I was so happy to try that out, actually accidentally. But now I no longer fear browns. And I've learned that browns can be really cool-toned, can be really dusty, and can look good on me. So I'm going to try out more browns, more dusty, cool-toned browns in the future, and we'll have to see how that works out for me, but I'm excited for it. I also learned a lot last summer when knitting my Levitate wrap by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This is she. I used the suggested yarn, which is ISAGER Soft or Aqua Soft in the gray colorway, held with one strand of the Trio 1 in the color Linen, which the Eco Soft is a very heathered gray, a light gray, but with some specks and notes of brown in there, and the Linen is more of a warm-toned, marzipan-y color. So together they make for a very neutral, heathered light gray, which again looks really good on me because it's neutral, leaning cool, just like my features are. And yeah, I don't know, I was very worried about the Linen Trio 1 because I thought it was way too yellowy for me, but it warmed up the Eco Soft just ever so slightly. It made the tiny bits of brown in there pop a bit more, and the color on this thing is amazing, and I think it looks so good on me, especially compared to a gray garment that I knit up when I thought my neutrals were supposed to be gray, because I'd seen that on some soft summer color palette pictures on Pinterest. But the gray doesn't look as good on me, in my personal humble opinion. Just the regular light gray doesn't suit me as well, I think, as this more neutral light gray suits me. So I really, really like the look of this neutral light gray over this very cool toned light gray. If you agree with me or don't agree with me, let me know in the comments, because I'm still really learning how all of this works and just sharing my thoughts with you over here. So yeah, I think in the future, if I want a light gray garment, I'm not going to lean towards a very cool light gray. This is Petite Knit's Poppy Tea in Skull Studios Recycled Cashmere. This is a yarn a Danish clothing brand, Skull, used to sell. I don't think they sell it anymore. They had a blue and a brown, they had a gray, slightly heathered gray and a brown. But so instead of buying what looked like a more cool toned brown, I bought the light gray, and it was, I think it's just a tiny bit too cool toned for me. I think the more neutral gray looks better, and that's why I didn't put this one on the rack. I don't wear it as often as I wear my Levitate wrap. It doesn't fit with my other clothes as well as I think my Levitate wrap does. So that's what I learned on neutrals for me. I think my neutrals really need to be dusty and neutral and not necessarily cool toned. I think the Knitting for All of Marzipan, I have some yarn in that color. I think marzipan colors are gonna look really, really great on me, because they're gonna be like a grayed out, creamy, perfect neutral color that's still like leaning cool just enough to be a perfect neutral for me. So I'm looking into neutral colors that have like brownish, grayish, like borderline colors, and like not pure whites or anthracites or anything, like more marzipan-y colors, more like browny anthracites I want to try out too. I'm gonna try anthracite yarn soon and see how that works. So I'm excited to see whether just dark gray works or whether I'm gonna have to find something that's a more brownish dark gray to work as well. But yeah, that's what I'm currently experimenting with. I have two slightly more flops to share with you too. I knit this sweater number 14 V-neck with a variegated hand-dyed yarn that is quite high contrast, so I softened it up with 2 strands of raw white, so undyed FILCOLANA tilia mohair. But yeah, it looks less good on me than these other neutrals do. It does look really nice because I softened it up and it's not too high contrast anymore, but I think it would have been better for me to use a neutral, slightly warm-leaning gray than a white to soften this up, because now it's a bit too creamy and it's a bit too white to really harmonize with my features like some of these other colors on my rack do. Doesn't mean I don't like this sweater and I don't wear this sweater. I'm just looking at my color season right now, but so this one doesn't fit in there, but I love the sweater nonetheless. I think it's a really good basic. Another sweater I really love but doesn't fit in with my color palette perfectly is this guy. This is my sweater number 18? I think it's 18, by also my favorite things knitwear, that I knit up terribly off gauge with Drops Nepal and Drops Kid Silk, both in the color light beige, but the Drops Nepal in light beige is very, very warm. It's a very orangey, or like it's not very orangey, but way too much for me, light beige, whereas the Kid Silk has more grayish undertones that has softened this garment up a little bit, but still it's a bit too warm for me. So it's softened up, it's a bit more neutral leaning, but it's still like too warm for me to be the perfect neutral, and I thought I'd show that to you guys too, just for your information. Things that I tried that didn't work out fully. So the wool that I used in this garment was too warm to really be softened up sufficiently by the more cool toned mohair. I still love this garment though. It's really warm, it's really soft. I wear it at home a lot, but the drops kid silk is very scratchy for me, so I tend to wear it only when it's really cold and I have like a layer and often even a turtleneck underneath this. But so yeah, that's on this sweater. It's not my color. Like, it's not a very warm auburn or like pumpkin color, but still it's a bit too warm for me, and the mohair didn't cool it down sufficiently, in my opinion, for the color to really be perfect for my color season. So we've reached the end of my little show and tell. I hope you found it interesting and learned something, or just had fun judging my color choices. If you learned anything, or you have any questions, or you have any opinions, feel free to share that down below or to reach out to me on Instagram. I love responding to you guys and hearing what you guys think. If you have any yarn recommendations for the future, any colors that you think would look really good on me, feel free to drop those below as well. And of course, leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And now all that's left for me to say is that I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and get to enjoy some lovely knitting time. Hope to see you soon in my next video. Bye bye.